Reports from the United Nations states that over 222,000 children in Sudan will die as a result of malnutrition in the Darfur region. We have that and the videos and many more to bring to you. There have also been the issue of Niger taking out America from two of their military bases in Niger. The implication of that we are going to bring to you with the geopolitics about that issue. There have also been a trial again that was adjourned against Mazi Nnamdi Kanu, the leader of the Biafran, the IPOB, the Biafran movement in Nigeria, and he has released a public statement. We have talked to some insiders within his legal team, and we are going to bring all that to you. Ladies and gentlemen, you are all welcome to the People's Platform. This is the People's Right Advocative Platform, where we believe in the individual civil liberty of every human being. We believe in advocating and pushing for the respect of people's rights, especially indigenous people across the globe. We, as Black people in particular, we take interest in advancing the human right of every Black person, whether in Africa, Europe, or in America. So you are all welcome. Ladies and gentlemen, we will start with this very, very sad situation that is unfolding in Sudan, in the Darfur region. Every African and every Black person across the globe, indeed, you should be worried about this news that is coming from the United Nations. I want to play those videos for you to listen. We have had two factions that have been fighting over power in Sudan. You have the Sudan Army Force led by Abdel Fattah, and you also have the RSF, which is led by Hamati. And the people who have been suffering from this fighting are the Black people in Sudan. You know, the majority of the Sudanese people consider themselves to be Arabs. The Masalit group, that is the main tribal group in Sudan, have been the biggest victims of this conflict. If there is one thing that unites the Sudanese people, is their hatred for the Black people. And we are going to show you these video footages that are coming from the United Nations to highlight the plight that the minority people of the Darfur region are facing. Both sides hate, they are united in their hatred for the Darfur people. We have seen the Southern Sudan break away from Sudan as a result of discrimination and similar type of things. So let me take you now to the United Nations so that we can watch this video together.
The world's possibly worst hunger crisis. Already 18 million people, again, has been said. More than 1/3 of the country's estimated population are facing food insecurity. By the time the lean season arrives in May, people in some parts of Darfur could face what we term IPC Phase 5 level acute food insecurity. We call this stage a catastrophe. Our humanitarian partners estimate that in the coming weeks and months, somewhere in the region of around 222,000 children could die from malnutrition. And with the estimated WHO estimates that more than 70% of health facilities are not functional, children who are already malnourished are at even greater risk of dying from preventable diseases. My colleagues are on their way down with my state.
During the recent harvest season, an estimated 18 million people were expected to face a crisis or worse levels of acute food insecurity. That is the worst level of hunger ever recorded by APC during the harvest season.
So, as we speak, there are over 222,000 children that face imminent malnutrition and death in the Darfur region in Sudan, fighting caused by the conflict between the two factions that are all united again with their hatred against the Black people in the Masali tribes in Sudan, in the Darfur region. Nobody seems to care about it. The vast majority of allocated international resources to handle humanitarian crises are now all diverted to Gaza because that is what everybody cares about. Even in Africa, the African people don't really care about each other. Otherwise, this should have been in the headline and the most concern from all African countries. Where is Ramaphosa, Cyril Ramaphosa? He's more interested to sue about the Gaza issue than people who are dying in Sudan. There is a genocide going on in the Darfur region in Sudan. Malnutrition. Where is the President Kagame? Where is the Museveni and all those people who supposedly care about Africa? Where are the African activists? If Black life really matters, the human toll of suffering in Darfur would be on the headline and on the lips and on social media for all influencer in Africa. But nobody is talking about it because there are Black people that are left somewhere. It is the American ambassador in the United Nations talking about it. It is the United Nations talking about it. The African states are mute, absolutely mute. The least I can do as the People's Platform is to highlight this issue, hoping that at least for my conscience, I have done my own part for humanity, for the Black people and the Sudanese people, the people in Darfur region who are going through hell. They have been enslaved. The Bantu people have been driven all across northern Africa, down to the south, and they are still being hunted down. This is a true image of Africa that the Black conscience must recognize. We, the Black people, are being hunted everywhere, even in our own continent. Where is our own African initiative? If African countries, they want to be part of the Security Council, they should also assume international responsibility for humanitarian crises such as this. It is really bad and it's very, very insensitive. During the years in the 1950s, when we did not have social media or mobile phones available to the citizens, we saw that the leaders of Africans who fought for independence were more concerned genuinely about the suffering of every Black man everywhere. We saw that with Idi Amin. As a child, we fought against the apartheid, sending money to fight against the apartheid. Today, where is their love? Where is the love? You must start from your own self. For the most part, the common Black man do not really care and is not very aware about this risk. But the risk of terrorism in Africa is really huge. We have had for a long time nomadic tribes that have migrated into African continent from the Middle East, from Yemen and all those areas, Oman. You call them the Tuareg, the Fulanis, the Maoris, the Poles, and these people have been very vulnerable to Islamic teaching that are contrary to the peaceful Islam that we are familiar with. I'm talking about the ISS and Al Qaeda. They operate in those zones. We have seen terrorist activities in Nigeria with Boko Haram. We have seen in Burkina Faso and many of these regions where these people come to seek ground to train soldiers and indoctrinate people in their own very draconian way of life that is not accepted by most Africans. So what has been going on? The United States have built a base there in Niger, and right now the Niger government have kicked them out. Let us watch the video and listen to the press conference.
Republic of Niger is illegal and violates all the constitutional and democratic rules which would require the sovereign people, in particular through its elected representatives, to be consulted on the installation of a foreign army on its territory. When it comes to choosing diplomatic, strategic and military partners, the government of Niger regrets the willingness of the American delegation to deny the sovereign people of Niger the right to choose its partners and the types of partnerships likely to help it to truly fight terrorism.
So, ladies and gentlemen, just to give you a background for those who have not been following up what is happening in Niger. The Americans have sent a delegation that came to Niger to talk about the way forward, and they pressed Niger on transition of power. The Nigerian government have simply rejected that and sent away the Americans out of that country. And it's very interesting to know what happened in Niger. Early on in I think 2020, there was a democratic election in Niger where the president, Mohamed Bazoum, won the election. Everybody was very happy. We knew that finally Niger was in the right footing. It was being paraded as a model for democracy across Africa. The President Bazoum came from a tribe that migrated into Niger from Libya. There have been a minority in Niger. These have been the men who have been fighting against the French policy of exploiting uranium in Niger. Everybody knew that this was now positive Niger was on the footing towards democracy, and boom, he was kicked out. The instinct of all of us Africans is to be happy that dictators or the French are being kicked out. But in this case, the president of Niger was democratically elected. He was a minority, somebody who was actually against the French system. He was kicked out, not by the people of Niger, but by the military, the presidential guard, supported by the Wagner group. That was a coup because of what? It is all because of oil. All because of oil. The elephants have come to our continent to fight. So, nevertheless, I'm going to give you a full picture so that you can have information and make up your mind. The African people, we promote democracy. We know that the aspiration of every African is to be able to elect their own leader. It is true that we have dictators in Africa like Museveni, Paul Biya, and many other regimes that are put in place by the West. We don't want Western countries to impose their own leaders upon us Africans. We, the youth, do not want that. That is why, for the most part, we support even military coup d'etat. But we should be very careful what type of military coup d'etat. The Russians have come in to put in their own leadership in Niger. Now the Americans want to put in their own, the French want to put in their own, but for we will stand for the right of the African people to choose their own leadership. To give you the true picture of what has been going on in Niger, which is similar thing that have been happening in Burkina Faso and Mali. They are fighting terrorism in that area for real. The terrorists, which comes mainly from the Tuareg area, these are nomadic tribes that seeks to create Islamic states that works with Al-Qaeda and ISS in Africa, are not welcomed by majority of the African people. And these states are truly fighting against terrorism. The Americans have been there helping them. The French government as well. But we know that the French government always uses such situation to exploit the African states. But the Americans, for the most part, have been sincerely pushing for democracy. In Niger, they have supported the government of Bazoum with millions of dollars. Since the start of the war in Niger, the African people have been the greatest losers. All efforts by the European Union, the Americans to push for democratic changes in Africa have completely halted. Dictators in Africa are the greatest winner. I am not sure how many Africans want communism, but majority of African youth who are attracted by Vladimir Putin are not attracted by dictatorship, because Africans, by their own very nature, are people who love freedom. They just simply want their country free from Europeans or Western, whatever type of influence. They want to be able to choose their own leader, be empowered with the instruments to govern themselves. So such coup d'etat, which seems good, may not be very good. We want coup d'etat for real dictators like Museveni. If Putin wants to help Africa, take away Museveni, take away Paul Biya, and allow the people in those countries to choose their own leader. I'm going to show you the interest of Russia in Niger so that our people in Africa, they can have full knowledge to know what is actually going on.
Targeting the European market. We are also building a pipeline from the West African gas pipeline to Morocco, also targeting Europe. So what the Russian and Ukraine crisis has created is additional market for our gas.
He says Nigeria can make up for supply shortfalls for many European countries, but would need more of their investments to speed up delivery.
So there have been a war going on between NATO member countries and Russia. And because of that war, the issue of gas supply to Europe have become part of the instruments of war. So what Russia have done is their interest in cutting off the pipeline, the gas pipeline that was supposed to supply Nigerian gas to Europe. The Europeans, for the most part, had never ever want to trade with African gas. They prefer to trade with Russia, which was their geopolitical enemies, because the white man don't always want us black people to succeed. Had it been the European had invested money to help Nigeria export gas, because African states do not have the type of capital that is required to exploit their gas resources, they could have had enough gas trading with Nigeria competing with Russia. But for over 50 years, the Europeans have neglected gas oil from Nigeria and the Congo in favor of importing gas from Russia. And today, because there is a war going on, Russia seeks to eliminate the competition from Nigeria and Congo by supporting the military junta in Niger with the sole aim of stopping the pipeline.
We are in the process of building a pipeline.
With the sole process of stopping the pipeline to resupply Europe. That is the only interest of Russia. Russia does not come to Africa to help Africans to be free. They come to Africa to do business. When the elephants are fighting, they bring their war to Africa. We, the grass field in Africa, we are the ones who suffer. It does not matter whether you like Russia or you like the West. It is not our business who is good, who is not good. But we should be in the business of recognizing our own interests. The military junta in Niger, even though they have taken power, they have destroyed the democracy in Niger. They have stopped the oil pipeline, the gas pipeline from Nigeria to Morocco and to Europe that was supposed to help the Nigerian economy. It is very bad for business. And Africans should know that. What is it good for Russia to take control of Niger? What is it good for America to take control for African countries? For me, I stand with the African peoples who wants democracy. We want to be able to elect our own leaders and to control our own economy. We must have political system that represent and protect our own interests. While we fancy the change of regimes, we should fancy the change of dictatorship. We should not just be blindly pursuing Russia because we know that the West have failed Africa. Their promise of preventive diplomacy, their promise to help Africa to overcome dictatorship. The same people have been assassinating African leaders who wants to be independent. So, but for us Africans, we should always stand for what is good for our people and the best interest of our people. For us, the best interest of the people of Niger is that both Russia and America, they should carry their war somewhere else and leave the people of Niger to be able to have trade partners all over the world and to also help us to fight terrorism. Because of last month alone, according to information from the Burkina Faso, over 800 Burkina Faso military men have been killed by terrorist actions in Burkina Faso. So definitely those governments need help and they need the best help they can get. The Wagner group is very brutal. They have been very successful in Central Africa, but in terms of fighting terrorism, they really don't have any interest in fighting terrorism other than securing the interests of Russia in those countries. So ladies and gentlemen, that said, our people have to be very, very conscious. We want the people in Africa to have democracy. The people rose up in Tunisia only to see that dictatorship replaced with another dictatorship. They rose up in Burkina Faso, similar thing happened. They rose up in Egypt, the same thing happened. Africans should know what they want, not just what they don't want. If you just know what you don't want, you might end up with something even worse. Sisi is now even more a dictatorship in Egypt than the previous president who was there. So we should be careful what we support and we should have principle behind the things we support. So, ladies and gentlemen, I want to take you now to the courts in Nigeria. Nnamdi Kanu, the leader of the Biafran movement, have released some appeal. From our discussion with some members within the team, we know that they are pushing for a house arrest for his release as an alternative. Let us watch the video together.
The court is also entitled to change its mind as well, depending on the strength of the argument. So we hope that they'll change their mind.
They're using it to do experiment against us.
Exactly. So there is no way we're going to allow that to happen. My rights must be respected.
It's important.
My right to fair hearing must be observed and obeyed.
Understand that. They brought him to Kenya into this door.
You were talking about your health condition. What exactly is wrong with you, sir?
I have congenital heart failure. Congestive heart failure is called. From the medication, you can tell. So they're basically trying to keep me alive. So that when they calculate that I'm about to give up, that my heart's about to pack up, they will now say go. So when I go outside, I will die outside. That's what they're trying to do.
The medications they've been giving to you,
Yes.
has it not been working?
It's not working. If it's working, why would I have all these lumps underneath my...
And he has written a petition to the Nigerian medical...
the wife of somebody. I don't know what other thing they're going to tell
Are you saying you are innocent of all these charges?
The federal government, they know I'm not guilty. My only guilt is that I'm fighting for my people. You must help the poor and those who cannot help themselves, and be of good character that God may love thee. That's who we are.
So what will be your words to those out there in the East who are killing in the name of IPOB?
That they are criminals. They are criminals. They're not part of this family. We are called a family for a reason. We've come to serve our people, not to enslave them. Anybody conducting any type of activity that contravenes the welfare of our people is a criminal and must be dealt with.
Thank you very much, sir.
Any form of violence or subversion in the name of Biafra is not part of this family. Our family is noble. It's called IPOB. It's all over the world.
So the Biafran people or the Igbo people are the largest tribe currently in Africa. For us black big-nosed Africans, they are the largest tribe, and Nigeria is the most populous African state and the second black state, populous black state in the world. What happens in Nigeria is very important, and we also stand for the rights of the indigenous people of Biafra. I used to be the deputy defense chief of Ayabacho when we had a coalition with the Biafran movement. I have since resigned. And it is very sad what is happening in Biafra. The Igbo people have been the victim in Nigeria, as many other African states, which is being built on the hatred of a particular group of people to deny them any right of accession to power. In this case, the Igbo people will never become president in Nigeria to suit the ego that built Nigeria to what it is. The Biafran movement, led by Nnamdi Kanu, have been fighting very hard for the rights of the people of Biafra. Their main aspiration was to have an independent Biafran state, and this cannot come at the cost of the Biafran people themselves. The aspiration must have a balanced approach with the reality of the day-to-day Biafran person. I have been a top advisor to the Biafran movement and was very critical in introducing the ghost town to the Biafran people. When I was still in Hong Kong, the Biafran community approached me with the insecurity that they face back home. Diaspora in the Igbo land cannot go back because of kidnapping and atrocity back home. The policies of Simon Ipa have been very excessive. I had a phone call with him to explain to him some of the reports I was getting from Nigerians or Igbo people about the insecurity and the excessive use of lockdown, which is a practice they copy from us in Ambazonia. And he had given me his explanation. He's a nice gentleman, but I've given him the same advice that we, the people of Ambazonia or English-speaking Cameroonians, have learned. There is a big command responsibility when you go into war. You must have a strong code of conduct and ensure that no criminal gangs, do not infiltrate your ranks, or even the enemy creating groups in your own name. It should be absolutely clear that Simon Ipa do not endorse any group that carries out atrocity or kidnapping against their own people. You have seen Ayabacho, who had formed the alliance with Nnamdi Kanu, had betrayed that alliance by associating or sealing another association with Simon Ipa, despite the fact that Nnamdi Kanu is still in jail and communicating with everybody who is outside through his representatives. This is a very big betrayal of Ayabacho. Back in Ambazonia, Ayabacho's group have been committing mass crimes. That's one of the reasons I resigned. They have not put the public interest ahead of political interest. He wants to become the president and dominant figure at all costs. That is why he endorses public execution of innocent Anglophones in Cameroon. That is wrong. And I hope Simon Ipa will hear the voice of Nnamdi Kanu and follow what he is saying. Yes, we are fighting for our people. Our people want independence. Are those plans for independence realistic at the moment? Even in Europe, you see Ukraine fighting for its sovereignty against Russia. They sit and assess, can we win the war at this moment? If you cannot win the war, you adjust politically, you become flexible. You cannot become a prisoner of your own dreams. until it becomes a suicidal mission. The people of the Anglophone people in Cameroon and the Igbo people in Nigeria are very, very smart people, but they must make sure that their aspiration is not exploited by criminals who seek their own aggrandizement, who seek their own egos, their own image, and their own leadership, rather than exalting and uplifting their population. Liberation movement are a wonderful opportunity for the population that have been oppressed, but it is also a two-edged sword. It is also an opportunity for psychopaths, criminals, to take advantage of such movement to fight for their own self and enrich themselves at the expense of the people. I know these two men, Simon Ipa and Ayabacho. I know them as people who are driven by aspiration of independence, but I know them as well as people who are susceptible to the corruption of power, the killing of our own people by our own forces, the attacks against Igbo people by Biafrans in the name of independence have exceeded any acceptable level of atrocity. And leadership will require that these people who are out there radicalizing the youth take responsibility to ensure that the conduct of the forces that are acting on the field reflects what the people will approve of. And Mazi Nnamdi Kanu, I really appreciate this statement, and I hope this statement will speak to the conscience of all Biafran forces for them to respect their civilians and be called back to this principle that you are working for the people, not against the people, and will stop excesses on both sides. The same thing in the Amazonian movement. These words should touch the heart of Amazonian fighters to understand that you cannot kill the same people you claim you are protecting or you want to liberate. So this is a very powerful message that this platform thinks it should go to all Africans who are fighting for freedom, fighting for minority rights, that yes, our causes are noble, yes, we are fighting for our people, but we must ensure that our fight is something that live up to the expectation of our people and not hurt them. That is a message from this platform today.